You might want to click off of this video because it's going to probably alter or potentially ruin the way that you view reality. So I'm giving you that moment right now. But if not, if you are intrigued and you want to start to perceive reality and allow your brain to filter it for you in a much different way, continue to watch. Welcome everyone to the Simulation Frequency. On today's episode, I wanted to cover how your brain filters reality and how this is one large hallucination. I feel as though nothing I've seen on the internet to date has been that super exciting in relation to this topic. So I kind of want to try to spice it up and add some visuals and give you more of a real life experience of what this is. Talk a little bit more about my experience and wrap this all up into reality shifting, into how you can take this and actionably do things in your own life to see these changes, to be able to reality shift, to experience the things in the simulation that you want to experience. So if you're interested in this, make sure to hit the subscribe button so I can reach out to the algorithm even further and help other people with this information, because I believe everybody should be privy to it or start to experiment with it, because if you don't experiment with it, you will not see it. If you don't use it, you will lose it. So please hit the like button as well for me. But let's jump right into this. A lot of the things that you're going to hear me talk about have scientific proof behind them. I have done tons of videos on my channel at this point. You can go through the entire repertoire of all the scientific papers I've pulled up, all of the studies, all of the things that support the theories and the messages and the stories that I'm about to tell you today. But the first thing I'm going to start with is that we are born into what I like to call it the simulation. You can call it the universe, whatever it is. I believe we're all connected back to one Godhead source, one ultimate large, if you will, consciousness that resides outside of the simulation, but is all the simulation at the same time, if you know what I mean. It is all from mind. It is projecting as a holographic universe, if you will. It's all this fractal of light. It's simulation from the perspective of frequencies, vibrations. Tesla said it best, Nikola Tesla. Frequency, vibration, energy, right? Everything is some modality or is all modalities of that intertwined. So if there was the Big Bang, we bring in quantum physics. Many people would start to say this is pseudoscience, but once that would occur, it would be all entangled at that point. We are all entangled from the same occurrence. So all of the molecules and atoms that you see are actually only a fraction of what your brain can filter and perceive. So then you're born and then you are starting to create a map of reality based upon the filter of the brain that you come out with, if you will. We need that filter because there are multiple realities and dimensions that we live in, and our brain is filtering us for this specific simulation. Now, if you were to break this filter, this is when you start seeing alternate perceptions or realities, or you start experiencing the ethers, if you will. So from the time that you're born, you are told that reality is a certain type of way. Most of us are not brought up in a shamanic household that would teach you these kinds of things. We are all mostly none the wiser to these type of capabilities that we have. We would think that they are special. So if people are able to see ghosts, or they are able to talk to people that have passed, or they can quote unquote mind read, or they are psychic, we all are. The brain is a predictive mechanism. It is not only a filter for reality, which filters in all of it, because if you were to see reality as it was, it would look insane. And I'm going to show you some pictures on what that reality might begin to look like for you, what you might be able to perceive from those different layers of reality you're able to access. And usually this is done if you are in a hypnotic trance or in some sort of hallucinatory state, if you are in a lucid dreaming mode, if you're in the hypnagogic state. Different things like this will allow the veil to fall, if you will, of your brain's filtering mechanism, the default mode network. I think that right. It starts to change during these times, and it allows you to see more of what you would normally not see, because if you were accessing reality, it would blow your mind. In my opinion, you would go insane. You cannot process that level of functionality. So then let's go back to when you're born. You are showcased to the world in a certain way, your beliefs are formed, you make certain decisions based off of the things that have happened to you. If you were put into what I like to say, the sim in a certain area, it is basically a game that we are recycling over and over again. So you could potentially be reborn into this situation different times. You could have lived this life a multitude of times. We do live in a multiverse. You could call it that. We live in a world of infinite possibilities where this universe may have been played multiple times over. This simulation may be a version of itself, simulation and simulacra, copies on copies of copies. We have maybe copied this life, facsimiled it 1 million bajillion times, and you are just essentially connecting with your focused awareness once you start to wake up. We're doing this all the time when you're little, but what happens is your focused awareness is directed by usually the people around you and your environment. And until you take control and realize that you are a part of the entire system, you are the observer, you can look outside of yourself, recognizing that this avatar is a body, it is something that you will have for not a long time, not forever. If so willing, your cycle here in this version could be longer or shorter, but if it is longer, you start to awaken. And a lot of times children feel awake too, because they seem to see things that we can't. I know as a child, I was able to see very strange things that I could not explain, nor could the people around me explain. And I would blow off because it was never taken seriously. So if your thoughts and actions and feelings when you're younger are not taken seriously, you start to not look at this. And this is where the really interesting part starts to come in. You have to focus on seeing these things, or have to practice seeing these, or it's not always going to be in your eyesight. So for example, your reticular activating system, if you start to meditate and want to observe the other layers of reality where you can then reality shift, you will start to do so. Is this something that happens overnight for individuals? Perhaps. If you're looking for a special person, SP, that's very popular in the community, because what do we all want? We want some form of love or some form of safety. And that's why I was talking about earlier, the brain being a predictive mechanism. This is all tied back to psychology and to neuroscience. This is not things that I'm necessarily making up or I'm just pulling out of my you know what. This is all tied back. What I am alternately also suggesting is that there is a trippy side to this. It's not just the one way that you think that it may be, all tied to like just being like in the identity of the thing or the reality that you want. All of that, yes, that's all tied into this. I definitely believe that that's a part of this, but I am also proposing that there is this trippier side that we can tap into, that is the ethers, that is whatever they call it, the Akashic field, the outside of the sim, the liminal space, whatever you want to call it. We can work in these spaces and predict our future. That's what I'm trying to say. You can use your own awareness, conscious awareness, to be the predictor in your reality, to shift you into the reality, to filter out what you don't want to see and filter in what you do want to see. The reason many of us don't always immediately shift, or what they like to call quantum shifting, and I've even done videos on this stuff before, your brain needs to be in receipt of whatever it is that it wants to experience, if you will. I'm not claiming that this has to be the case every single time. Could somebody walk up to you and hand you a lottery ticket and you win? Yes. What it is that if you have a nervous system that is in fight or flight, fawn or freeze, you may not act in accordance with the reality and create the decisions that would create those reality shifts for you. And that's where the fear starts to come in, because your brain is attempting to keep you safe. So it wants to predict you into safe experiences. So I'm going to say that again. Your brain is always in a mechanism of putting you into what it perceives as a safe experience. So what you essentially would need to do then is create those experiences in your mind as safe, and then the brain will start to hallucinate them for you on the existence, because it then knows that it's safe, and then you can shift into that parallel reality, if you will. It will predict it for you, because what it is, especially at night, if you've ever noticed, it may be working out situations for you to try to predict how to correct it in the future, how to run that specific simulation at night, to have the answer come to you, so then in your waking dream, if you will, you can act out that experience, or do whatever it is. Inventors have used this. You kind of go in there into the hypnagogic state, figure out some sort of formula for your invention, and then wake up, use it, and then suddenly, wow, it's working. Could it be that you've done that a million times? Could it be that God, consciousness, whatever, has already hallucinated all of these experiences before, and we're just in an infinity type of situation where we're just re-hallucinating into those realities? I think that's why Neville was very articulate in speaking the way that he was about these things, and why his lectures have become very, very popular recently. He touches upon these things, but the way he speaks upon them is very old school. He doesn't bring up a whole lot of science with it. That's why you can oftentimes think that Neville was assuming that this was like a simulated type of environment, due to the fact that you could do so many things, a state akin to sleep. He firmly believed that you could have an experience where you would do the thing, go to the end. So, for example, I wanted to live in Florida. I often would go to the end, and I would be in this end. This is the end. What you're seeing here is one of my ends. And I imagined this specific backyard. I imagined this specific gate. I imagined this specific lanai, the pool, the flowers. They have all shifted into my reality. However, it was done so also with action. It wasn't just this thing where, isn't it wonderful that I had this and I just fell asleep and woke up here one day? No, these flowers were planted, these bricks were laid, this fence was put in and paid for, this pool was clean. Just all the things have been done, but they all happen in a simulated way, if you will, where I predict them in front of them occurring, and then they occur for me. So I think we just want to update a lot of our language, a lot of our ways that we think about this, and then tap into that creepier, funkier, more esoteric side of the sim, but realize what we're doing. Realize that when we're going into the hypnagogic state, it's because you are going into your simulation of the future. And what you're doing is having your brain primed for that experience, and then you will start to prime your reticular activating system, and then the simulation will shift you into that reality, as that's the next thing that you will be wanting to experience. Of course, do you have to do this with some sort of persistence and then external action? Yes. I persisted when I was purchasing this house. I would do strange things, like I did speak to the owner when she has already passed away. So I was speaking to the imagined person, and that's where your imagination really is. All of this is all imagined. This would not be here if I didn't imagine it. So it would be imagined in a different way by a different person, etc., etc. So I imagined speaking to the owner that had passed away and telling her that if she would tell her son to sell me the property for the price that I wanted, that I would create this beautiful property. But knowing all internally, again, that it is me. I am the property owner is me. We are all connected, we are all entangled. It's just all fractalized out. You are interacting with another piece of consciousness to just give it gratitude, or to just connect with it in such a way that feels natural and normal. And I did that. And through those activities, I was able to shift myself into the reality that I was hallucinating, that I was imagining, that I was entrancement of. And you want to keep doing this every single day. So when you realize that this is the case, you can see that loops can be created in your mind. And it's not just about your mind. I don't want to just say it's your mind and mind and mind. It is. I do believe it all comes from mind, but it's all really this electrical activity through the avatar. It's your heart, it's your gut. You need to get everything together. Everything needs to be right. Your heart needs to be connected to your gut needs to be connected to your mind. And when they all worked in unison, the simulation responds in such a way that will give you that consistency, or will give you that resilience. So people might say that nervous system, you don't have to do anything with that. You don't have to do anything with your subconscious. That's like hogwash. People will claim that a lot of things are outside of you, or that they don't matter. But until you get to that level of understanding, your subconscious can play tricks on you. This is why, if you've never done anything like a hallucinogen, and you've never experienced anything outside of this normal waking life, it's very simple and easy to make statements like that. But when you're in a hypnotic trance and you are stuck, thing is, I was watching A Wonderful Life recently, and that movie was made back in the 1920s or 30s or something like this. It was in black and white. And he was, at the end of the movie, brought into his life. If it would have gone on a different trajectory, if he had never been born, he got to see the alternate realities that were occurring for all of the people around him, and how negatively, quote unquote, that may have impacted their lives. Now, a note on negative and positive, that is really up to you, is to decide what you declare is negative or positive. The simulation is a neutral machine, and it just goes based off of what your experience is, or what you're internally attempting to try to experience. And that can be done through thoughts, actions, frequencies. And like I was saying, in A Wonderful Life, he was repeating over and over again, am I being hypnotized? Because back then they knew the power and capability of hypnotic suggestion, because it can allow you to view or perceive the world in such a different way. And we can see this over and over again by different gurus that have put people in certain trances or certain suggestive states that make them appear to be God body in nature. And that's why when you're practicing becoming a hypnotist, they tell you, make sure that you relay to your audience that it is all a act of self-hypnosis, that nobody can hypnotize you, and that you can't be taken to a place and not break out of it. While that's definitely true, and you say that in advance, there are also so many things that we just need to wake up from and have a reality shift and recognize these things. Anything can hypnotize you. We need to start expanding our vocabulary. We need to start expanding the way we think about these things, or we won't see it. If you don't start thinking about these things in alternate, strange, different ways, like I think that guy, Michael Levin, really does this. And he's, in my opinion, blowing the top off of a lot of scientific stuff. Like that YouTuber, Professor Dave, will like rip into people that talk about things like I do. But I would love to see him go into Michael Levin's work, because his work is proving a lot of the things that are pointing back to these theories and concepts. You are being hypnotically suggested to, you can do things and not recognize it because they're getting into your subconscious and you don't even know it. There is studies that have proven this. So for example, if you are shown things like a Coke ad over and over again, when you go to the store, you may be more inclined and likely to purchase the Coke bottle instead of purchasing another off brand, because you have been suggested to so many times. You are used to, your brain is comforted by that visual and is in a predictive mode to then receive it. So you need to be very careful with the things that you're viewing, the things that you're listening to. This still is true with music. Any frequency that you're listening to, if there's a hypnotic suggestion in it, you can start to hear that and start to automatically perceive things a certain way for yourself, and you don't even know it. The scary part of it all, and that's, I think, the part of like getting out of the matrix. Like I love being in the matrix and recognizing that you're in the matrix and uncovering all the ways that the matrix has you, yet knowing that it's a game, recognizing the rules, playing by the rules, and realizing that it's all you, and starting to move in that essence, if you will, starting to see that there's other ways to play this game, that it is not what they say that it is. You start seeing that in everything that is out there, there is potentiality for you to become hypnotically entranced in something and be moving and acting in such a way. And I am guilty of this as well. We all are at this point. I have been entranced or hypnotized. I am a consumer. I overconsume things sometimes, and I'm aware of it. And I try to be aware to where I stop myself and cut myself off, and recognizing that it is some sort of loop playing out, but also recognizing that it is a novelty in the simulation, and novelty is an expander tool. Novelty is a tool that expands your horizons. So for example, if I have certain things that I'm really attracted to and there's a certain novelty to it, and if I do consume it, I consume it with the awareness that I'm expanding my wealth, that anything that I purchase can be resold for double, or that I could make content with it, or that I will be using it, or that it will go towards something that it isn't necessarily complete over consumerism. Is that always the case all the time? No, probably not. But these are the things that I do try to tell myself, especially when it comes to a lot of physical, tangible things, because at the end of the day, you don't necessarily need any of these things. Do you need some kind of monetary funds to live, so to speak? Yeah, because if you need food and shelter, but if it was in an area that you loved and you had hobbies and that you didn't have to worry about things like paying certain bills, your body and the way you act would be much differently, because your brain would be predicting other things. If your brain is always predicting how to make the bills, that's a loop that you can get stuck in. If your brain is always predicting that you don't find love, like for example, again, I think we talked about earlier and I stopped, but SPs, like if your brain is always predicting that certain people are a certain way, that you don't get certain individuals that you want, that people aren't going to give you the lifestyle, etc., that you want, you're going to start training your reticular activating system for that. You're going to prime your brain for that. You're going to prime your avatar for that. You're going to start making predictive modeling in your mind in the sim. And then the brain is going to give you predictive experiences out here showing that match that. So like a mirror, as above, so below. All the religions point back to this stuff. And once you start connecting it all, you'll see how it all works. So then your experiences will be that these certain individuals don't receive what you think that they would from you. They aren't reacting the way that they would to you. Now, if you looked at your world that all the SPs, you're in receipt of all the SPs don't bother you. That's not even a thing to you. You can get whoever you want, whenever you want. There's a certain mind frame that you have. So then what'll happen is that with that predictive state, your external will start to predict to you, oh, people, SPs fall at this person's feet. Person has no problem getting SPs. This person radiates confidence, so people will radiate confidence back and will to be in receipt of that energy, because it's not that needy energy, if you will. It's all connected, like the law of attraction, the law of assumption. There's ways that you can literally take anything and fold it back into this, showing how reality shifting works. And the more you start to understand this, you will start to see and you will start to perceive the reality the way that you want to, but you have to predictively prime your mind to do this and have your entire body be in alignment with that experience that you're trying to achieve. And a lot of times, is it mental? Yes, it's mental and it's physical. And you can create whatever system you want. Of course, the system is going to be the easiest thing, because I think would do with repetition and persistence, because things don't automatically happen usually in the sim. Can they? Yes. Are they happening insofar as they have already happened in another alternate reality? This is where you start to get into this thing where it feels pseudoscience too, where time space does not really matter. Time doesn't matter, because you want to be healthy. You want to have enough money to be able to retire, and you want to have a significant other or whatever, a special person or whatever. You want to find love. And you have these three main things that you're trying to get into alignment. That has probably already played itself out a million times, could be 1,000, a bajillion, who knows. What you're doing is aligning and hallucinating your way to that specific reality. You are hallucinating that reality to exist for you. You're recreating that timeline or shifting into that timeline through the process of reimagining that thing. You're not imagining anything new. Like Einstein said, and I've said it in other videos, energy is neither created nor destroyed. So you're just reimagining, reshifting, or whatever you want to call it, into that reality where you have those things. Those things already have existed for you previously. You could think about it like that. And you're just realigning to that version of you, because there's a version of you that could be poor or could be medium. There's a version of you that would be doing anything that you so to speak. And that goes for anybody, because anything in reality has already been imagined. So do you see what I'm saying with that? So it doesn't matter what it is. May it happen in this simulation? No. Could it happen in another version of reality? Yes. I believe there are other versions. That's why they talk about the 11th dimension. That's what the eyes can see. You can't see everything, like I was saying before, because we don't have the eyesight for it. We do not have the capability for it. We do not have the high powered lens for it. We do not have the perception for it unless you highly practice these things, become shamanic in nature, and then you can start to see the other side of reality. And it is extremely trippy. And you can start to see it from the mind sight where you're in that like fourth, fifth, 10th dimension, and you bring it down into this dimension. There's been other scientists, I think, that have said like there could be elephants walking around in your living room. And the way that I perceive this is I have seen this before. I was in a field. I told you at one point I did a tab when I was 14, and I was in a field, and the field turned into an entire ocean. And I saw an individual, a person, turn into a boat very fluidly, not like this type of squiggly line or sort of kinda. It was real. The environment completely shifted. So for me, that means that there's other layers here that we are not seeing. There are capabilities here that we are not aware of. And until we start to practice these capabilities, you will not be aware of them. So, for example, recently I've been practicing with my lucid me mask and my Muse headband. I will leave those linked below. This will entrain you to start to be in those special states that I like to call. They're special to me. They're special. They should be special to you too. The theta brainwave, it mixed in with the alpha brainwave. There's something like special about that. And then there's these spikes of gamma, if you will. And what ends up happening is these are like creative spikes. And this is when I would be in those entranced states, in the hypnagogic state, right before falling asleep, where you can imagine experiences that you want to have. You can go to the end there. And then with the lucid me mask, that further then triggers me to then lucid dream that specific experience in the dream. Recently, I was able to speak to my father who passed away a couple of years ago. So that's the power of lucid dreaming. You can maybe speak to somebody that is no longer with you, have experiences that are out of this world that you could not potentially experience in this world. That's why lucid dreaming is cool. But be careful. This is why I said watch what you do clicking on this video, because you can lucid dream and then have these things play out in your real life. So the other day I had a lucid dream, or it was really more so like just a regular dream. It wasn't a lucid dream. With your dreams and your lucid dreams. So in my dreams, I saw possums, and now looking back on it, I was going through my yard and there was holes in my yard, and I couldn't understand why there was holes in my yard. So now looking back on it, this is how I think it worked out. My brain needed to predictively model the problem of the holes in the yard. And it basically gave me a dream of possums. And I now believe that it is the possum that was digging the holes in my yard, because that next day, the possum then showed up running across the top of my gate here, which was trippy because, again, I had that dream of the possum night before, and then the possum showed up. So do you see how this all starts to become interconnected? It's all this interconnected game, if you will, and you start figuring it out and seeing how all the pieces click together. And it is magical in nature, I believe, but it's not magical to the point where if you can see all the things, if you could connect all the things, you can connect the esoteric stuff. You can connect the neuroscience. You can connect the metaphysics. You can connect the new age. You can connect the old school religion. You can connect all the Egyptian stuff. You can connect all the aliens. You can connect all the lucid dreams. You can connect all the concepts that this is all one big dream, that this is all, one shared reality, that this is all non-local. You'll see all the science start to connect into this. You can start to see everything connect into this. There's nothing that you can find that wouldn't connect back into this once you start seeing reality in such a way. Because once these concepts start to come to me now, everything folds back into this ultimate concept. No matter what you're talking about, no matter if you're talking about business goals, that can fold back into this, because you're just training your reticular activating system. You're creating a system for business, you're executing it, and then the simulation through your hallucination, through your tripness through whatever, you start to go into that reality and start to do well in business. And it's basically what you internally are telling yourself as well, the stories. So if you are a business person and you go into the business, but you're constantly telling yourself crap stories about the business, you will start to see those stories internally radiate out to you in the sim. Is this always the case? No, because I don't want anybody to think that they have to be constantly observing their thoughts, feelings, actions, blah, 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 blah. You cannot do this. That is impossible. Another thing that will make you go crazy. Just like if you were to be exposed to what reality is, I've been exposed to what reality is before. I thought I was going to lose my mind. I thought I was going to hallucinate my way dead or something, like at that age. It was an insane experience. I felt like I was in a completely alternate reality. So I know what it feels like to be on the brink of feeling like you are going to lose your mind because you don't understand the reality around you. And it's just seeing that it's all connected once you understand that, and understanding that there is this home-based reality where you are safe and ultimately you're always safe, but the brain is trying to keep you safe. It's trying to predict your best interest, if you will. And it's up to you to hone in on these skills in the simulation using your intuition. Your intuition is just another tool for the prediction engine of your brain. It is these intuitive hits from the simulation or gut instincts or whatever you want to say to be able to tell you which way you might need to go. And feelings are just a GPS monitor for you. They will let you know where you should and shouldn't be going. The worse something feels, more than likely you may want to move away from it, but depending on the situation. Because again, if you want to have a ripped body, do you have to sit in your mind, think about it? Because the mind doesn't know the difference between your hallucinated reality and real reality. That is absolutely correct. And will it have some sort of physical change on your body? Yes, but it will have more physical change paired with action. That's why you came into the simulation. It's meant for action, mind action with physical action, attention with action, with inspired action, shift you into the reality that you're looking to. And if it doesn't happen right away, you use the controlled hallucination and you hallucinate that out into this reality. And listen, patience is a virtue. Some things don't automatically happen. This house took me about 2 years. So just think about that. In time, it took 2 years. But now it doesn't feel like anything because I'm here already. Do you see what I mean? And it's hard for me to even perceive how much time it's taken from the beginning of my life to where I've hallucinated my way here, because I've been hallucinating Florida my entire life. It's a great example. And through that hallucination, and it wasn't a control. I'm going to show you how exactly this works now in my life. And it goes to show you a great example of what the hallucination is. I always loved Florida. And then when I was younger, I was invited to Florida for free, given a free plane ticket and free stay, and basically everything paid there. So I hallucinated my way there. How did I get that? That was through a friend. I didn't know this friend had any connections in Florida. I just loved Florida. And then suddenly I was brought to Florida. And then I was brought there on subsequent other occasions from that same individual. And I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I was hallucinating my reality. Did I know about the Matrix at the time? Yes, I was aware of the movie. I was aware of the fact that we could be living in some sort of strange reality, but I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to control it. I didn't know that it was something that I could control or that I could have some sort of influence over. So I kept doing that. Do you know how many times I've been given free trips to Florida? I was taken to Miami on multiple times in my last job. And that's to go to show you that you just keep hallucinating things and things keep happening for you. And then ultimately I was able to sell a property that I was renting, and then I was able to buy the property in Florida and finally stabilize the hallucination. You see what I'm saying? And I didn't create those events per se. They were kind of dropped in my lap through experiences that I was having in the simulation, all while keeping Florida in the back of my mind. So I kept having situations that would land me in Florida until the hallucination stabilized, because I kept thinking about it. Thoughts were not going to stop until that specific end state was met. So this, what you're seeing right now, is the end state of that hallucination that took me 42 years, or no, it took me 39 years because I got here a couple of years ago. So do you see that that felt like potentially could have been a long time, but looking back, I don't even kind of understand the perception of that, because I'm here now and it took me 39 years to stabilize that hallucination, but it did. And I really only began to harden that stabilization of that reality, of me seeing that reality, of me shifting into that reality, into me entrancing myself into that 360 hallucination of this thing that is also psychological in nature. It is material in nature, but it's the other side too. It can't just be one. So it's both. And now you've seen me here in my materialization of Florida, materialization of the wish fulfilled. This was my wish fulfilled. Do you see what I'm saying? And now I'm tangibly experiencing it. I'm not just hallucinating these things, but at one point I was, and it kept hardening slowly and surely, just like a shell would. Just like all the sequences, the Fibonacci sequence. It starts small, and then it starts to snowball, and it compounds, and then you see what you see in front of you. That is how the simulation works, and it is by design. If we got everything we wanted immediately, that's outside of the sim. I've been there, done that, because of the trip that I took. I was able to materialize things instantaneously, and it's weird. It's trippy. It blows your mind out. It takes the novelty out of life. So if you think about that, why would you want something instant? And I even have to convince myself of this. It takes the novelty out of the experience, because if you get everything you want immediately, what novelty is there in anything? You sit around like a lazy slob. Like, what is that? When you really boil down to that, when you really think about it. And it's up to us as a race and consciousness to get everybody to that base level security, I think, where everybody can feel safe to create. That's what a lot of us are in trouble with. Holding on to past traumas, holding on to internal dialogues, internal mental diets, internal visualizations, internal storytellings, and it's all reflecting out and we're not realizing it. And I'm not saying that you can't have slip ups or days. I have days where I've laid in bed miserable. I do that from time to time. If I'm not feeling well and my body says you've had enough, I will do that. And that's just the reality of the situation all day, because we're actually humans and we need to realize that this is a body that we are renting, just like a Lambo. You can go out and rent a Lambo. You can go out and rent a speedboat. It's the same thing. And all this stuff is rented anyway. Like, you're going to die, and then somebody's going to take it over. You see what I'm saying? So it's just looking at life through that perceptive lens. You will start to observe your reality much differently. Things will start happening to you differently. Things will start coming about in different ways for you, and you will see that the simulations start to shift, and then you will see the reality shift with you. But it's something that takes a lot of awareness and focus, in my opinion. And can things happen instantaneously for people? Absolutely. You can go and find the love of your life in a bar. You can go hit the lottery. You can have a health thing and then instantaneously heal from it, and the doctor's not explain it. Those quote unquote miracles happen all the time, but all I think you're doing is shifting into the reality where that is thus the case. That's the truth in that reality. So you've shifted that, and everything hardens into that. And sometimes that can happen instantaneously for people. Maybe that's how Jesus was able to do it. You see what I'm saying? Like this is all very explainable by these mechanisms and modalities, but also recognizing that nobody in the sim is more special than you. You have all these capabilities. You can achieve all these things. You can do all these things. They're all within your power. Nobody is above you. You don't need to seek outside of yourself. And I mean that with anything, with any scriptures, with any gurus, with any parents, with any authoritative figures. You are your own God body, but keeping it in the perspective that you are not the God of everybody, if you know what I mean. You are a fractal, and we all come together as that. Together we are that. But on your own, you are the shifter of your reality. You are God body coming into experience to have an experience for that ultimate consciousness. That experience is flighty. It's for you to have. Don't necessarily own all of these experiences. It's nothing yet all everything at the same time. It's just a modality for consciousness to create data, to observe. It's like one big scientific experiment of experience to be able to experience every potentiality of experience that could happen, whether or not it is happening in this dimension. It could be happening in a multitude of other dimensions with a multitude of other yous and a multitude of other realities and a multitude of other mechanisms, systems, ways. You could be on another planet, purple. You see what I'm saying? So you don't know. You cannot claim to know. And all I'm doing is opening up those potentialities, because we live in an infinite realm of potentialities. And when you bring in the quantum science of it, we are just collapsing those potentialities over and over again. And science is now pointing to the fact that we do have the space in our actual neurology to create these types of quantum collapses, where who knows? How do you know that you're not collapsing potentiality of energy? You're collapsing your own energy potentiality with the things that you're thinking, acting, doing out to the sim, and it's taking that collapse and then showing that collapse out to you in the reality that you end up hallucinating outwards, because you're collapsing that hallucination over and over again into existence for that reality. And if it's really a potentiality for you, it's an alignment for you, it's in potentiality of the simulated environment that we're living in. Remember that this is a game. Am I saying that crazy things can happen for you? Yes. But what is the potentiality? Everything is a potential, because you can claim that things will, you're a master, whatever, but what if they don't happen immediately? How do you explain that? You have to have some sort of explanation when the things don't go your way, don't you? But when you do, you explain it in such a way. That's what neurolinguistic programming does so well. That's what a lot of these channelers do so well. They're hypnotizing you and convincing you to speak onto your reality in a different way. That so shows you that the potentialities exist. So then when you do that, you make different choices. You do different things. You see different events and occasions and experiences that shift you into another reality, where different opportunities come up, where different things present themselves to you, and they're training your reticular activating system, and you don't even recognize it. You think that maybe that they're doing something supernatural, and they're not. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video, that you learned something from it, that you are now observing your reality in a much different way, that you can see that there's a strange side that you can access. Check out all of my meditations. They will help you access the strange side of reality. That's another caveat. I don't think it's just these normal meditations. I think you got to get into these stranger sides that's prompting you to see these other things in reality. Prime your reticular activating system to see the other dimensions, or you won't, right? So I hope everybody enjoyed this video. And until the next time, guys, you're all going to continue to manifest magic and resonate on your most aligned frequency. All right. Bye, guys. Mwah.